Sing, O you muse of Achilles and his rage. The muse, of course, that we're invoking here is Calliope, the muse of epic poetry, because we are going to start on our own epic, that into the Iliad. Now, if you're like, I don't know if this is for me, just wait. I promise it's for you. It's for everybody. It's meant to be told the whole town, so there's something in there for you. I do think you're going to love it. It's pretty awesome. This is part 1. We're starting at book 1. We're actually starting at like book 0. We're going to do with some context, and we're going to all the way to like halfway through book 4 today. Enjoy it. Love it. Let us know what you think of it.
Okay. The harder the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A fiercest serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Okay. Now, listeners, I want you to close your eyes. Spencer, too. Unless you're driving. Don't close your eyes, you dumb. This is serious, okay?
Close your metaphorical eyes.
Close your inner eye, Look inward. I want you to think of your favorite movie. And I want you to try to describe with words the very first shot of that movie. I'm going to have Spencer explain this in a second, but I want to take the listener through it first. So the first shot of the movie, what's the camera angle? What type of shot are they doing? Is it a Dutch tilt? So on. Are there a lot of cuts? Is it slow cuts? Are there words on the screen? Is it fading in? Where is it fading in? What's the scenery? What are the characters? Are they saying anything? And I want you to think about every possible thing that you can remember about that movie. Like, how accurate is your memory there? And the 2 questions I have for you as you're doing this is, how long could you keep that up for? Could you make it through your whole movie? Could you make it 5 minutes in? 2 minutes in? And the second thing I want you to think about is, are the words you're using interesting? Would people want to hear the story of your movie? Okay. Spencer, what movie were you thinking of?
Interstellar.
Interstellar. Okay, how does Interstellar open up? What were you remembering?
So, I don't remember the exact, but I remember the opening couple of scenes, and so I'm thinking of vastness, like a huge cornfield.
Sure.
That shot. And
with the drone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the insane Hans Zimmer music, and it's like doing this like warping, rising thing. You're like, what the fuck am I about to watch right now? And it's more of a experience than it is of a I don't even know. As you can tell, words can't describe the feelings that I have when you're talking about my favorite movie. Right,
tons of atmosphere. Doesn't Interstellar start with those old people recanting their time, and it makes it sound like it's the fucking depression,
like it's the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's I had never remember that until I watched it, and every single time I start the movie, like, what the fuck is this in the beginning here?
Yes, I adore that. Oh man, I adore that film.
Okay, so why are we talking about this? Why are we trying to think about memory and movies? And it's because we're going to be talking about the motherfucking Iliad today and for the next couple days, because it is a doozy.
I'm just glad that the average listener listening to us right now, thank you for listening, by the way. Welcome to Battle Buddies. Kevin has worked his ass off on this.
Yeah, it's been...
How many months has it been, dude?
I don't know.
You started when we were still in teaching.
It was Christmas. Christmas is when I started. Christmas Eve. Yeah. Christmas Eve. We'll go through my research.
It's almost half a year it's taken,
Kevin.
And
it's the most research by far I've done for any literary work. Like, way more than I did for school on anything.
That's how this is starting to become, listeners. Kevin and I put our hearts, souls, time, love into this shit, and we hope it really resonates with the listener. But yeah, dude, thank you for taking the time to... If no one listens to this, even if it's just me, dude, thank you for teaching me about this.
Yeah, man.
I don't know I know very little about the Iliad. My mythology trivia is not great, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a big blind spot.
Okay, so thank you. Those are kind words. I don't know how much I'll be able to teach, but we will go on a journey. We'll go on a journey together. I am excited about that. I'm excited to bring up questions for some interactions, maybe.
He's humble too, folks.
Whew, whole package. So we're talking about memory because the thing that you need to know about the Iliad and the Odyssey and any of these ancient stories, before even going into the content themselves, is how they were delivered. And this isn't an era, this is after the Bronze Age collapse, like 9th century, 8th century BC. And there's no Greek alphabet. Essentially, they were using this alphabet called Linear B before the Bronze Age collapse. We'll talk about all that in a minute. But there's no alphabet right away for like 500 years. And these people still want to be entertained. Being entertained is not something that is new. Right? People have always needed to be entertained. After a hard day of work, you would like to go watch a movie. That's just like, there's something about it. So you would have these guys. They would be bards. They weren't called bards. They were called like idios, which just means singer.
Idiots. Listen to these fucking idiots.
Dum-dums. No, but they were probably more like geniuses. Some of them more than others.
Not idiots.
And they would recite from memory these huge stories as they traveled around.
Is that still a thing to this day?
Not that I know of.
Muslims. There is somebody if all of the Qurans were burned,
the Quran,
there are people who can recite whole thing.
That's a part of the Muslim faith is memorizing and learning the Quran because it wasn't written for a while, right?
Christians do it too.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I'm not going to get into all
and
that.
it also, let's end with just say shout out to Fahrenheit 451. That movie. Or the book. Excuse me.
There's a movie. It's all right. We would call them bards. But bards we know from our Caesar series. Mm-hmm. Bards are barbarians. That's a different word. Doesn't quite mean the same thing. So they would tell these huge stories and they would travel around. And basically the way that I imagine, and I could be wrong on this, is that they would tell their story. They'd tell like half the story, a third of the story. And they would hopefully tell it well enough to where people would give them the donations.
To hear the rest?
To hear the rest. So then they could stay. And so then they travel around like week by week to different cities.
Honest, that sounds like a fucking cool job.
Yeah, dude.
It's basically what would be today considered probably like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. Like a touring musician, right? Touring musician. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very interesting.
I love it.
So that's what this guy Homer is at an interesting time in this like 8th, 9th century BCE time period because the Greek alphabets kind of appeared.
So Homer is Greek.
He's a Greek guy.
Okay.
And what he did, which no one else had really done, is he's like, these stories are pretty good. And so I think I'm going to write them down. And he wrote them down. And we have thanked him for it ever since because people have been reading his two stories, the Iliad and the Odyssey.
That's how A Knight's Tale ends. Chaucer looks up and says, I think I should write this down.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Awesome. That was a good tie-in. Okay. It's hard to know where to even begin with the Iliad and Homer and all that. I guess where we should start with is you may be more familiar with the Odyssey, if you're an American listener especially. Mm-hmm. The Odyssey, I would like to come back at another time and do the Odyssey or even do it for like a Patreon because
we will come back and do it.
I would love to because it's...
So the Odyssey is the one when I think back to like the sirens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Odyssey.
So it's the sirens, it's the Cyclops, it's the themes are really fun.
Is it Jason and the Argonauts also the Odyssey, or is that something entirely different?
That's something totally different.
I knew that.
Yeah,
I knew
it's
that
okay
for sure.
I still don't totally. Jason and the Argonauts is a confusing story to me. I don't know why.
Well, I remember the old school one with the stop-go animation monsters.
Yeah,
and I remember being like, "This is trash."
Cutting edge at the time.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Trash in the 90s.
Yes, sure.
For sure. Yeah, when your dad's like, I remember this.
Yeah.
Like,
and there's issues with that retelling of it. Like they mess with the witch. She's like, wait, I was like, I'm not going to get into all that. Consumed a lot of books on this stuff.
That's Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you can go on our Patreon
just go on
and listen to us talk about that kind of stuff.
Some feminist rants about how they dumb down the witches. All right. So you may be more familiar with the Odyssey. Contextually, the Odyssey is going to take place after the Iliad. Right?
Okay.
So that's
this
all.
Is the prequel to
this
the
is
Odyssey.
the prequel to the Odyssey.
Let's go.
The reason why it fits more, the reason why I'm going to focus on the Iliad first is a couple different reasons. One, this is a battle-focused podcast, and the Iliad is about the 9th year of this fictional, maybe semi-non-fictional war between the pre-Bronze Age collapse Greeks and the Trojans, which is epic. It's a 10-year siege, and there's crazy shit happening in it. So, like, just from that, it's
10-year siege.
That's what the story revolves around.
Sieges always last long, all right, but 10 years is fuck, dude.
Modern ones have gone on for a lot longer. We'll go on that in a minute about what sieges are. So, the other reasons why I want to look at the Iliad is I think it's underserved in our society. Like, I think that
Ours as in the Western culture, or just
like at least
the United States,
mainstream culture. Like, we don't know all of the, like, we can't name certain things about it like we could with the Odyssey.
I'll tell you what. I was asking AI to get ready for this. I was like, I want to watch a movie or a TV show or a Simpsons episode on the Iliad, and if I encourage the listener to do the same, you don't really find much.
No.
Troy with Brad Pitt is about as much as you're gonna get.
And they tried to do stuff. I don't like that they tried to remove the gods from it.
I don't think much people liked that movie.
Oh, really? I loved it.
Rotten Tomatoes didn't love it.
Yeah, 13-year-old Kevin was like, oh, this is cutting edge cinema.
Oh, trust me, I watched it and I was like, it was as cool as 300 was or whatever.
Right.
But it was like, I didn't go like, this is as good. This is Gladiator. It wasn't Gladiator.
Oh, it was for me, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it was epic.
So you love Troy.
Yeah, I love Troy.
Interesting. Okay.
And then I grew away from it as I just got more into classics and stuff.
I remember out of that movie, the one thing that I appreciated the most was the way they moved their shields after they got shot.
He would like spin it.
That
dope.
That was cool.
Okay. The other thing there's a bunch of reasons why we should still study, but one that Spencer and I have been talking about is that those in power study it.
That's right.
And it's just interesting to think about that those in power, not only are they studying it right now, like if you go to a military academy to become an officer, you will read this book and have these discussions. Probably, especially if you're infantry.
That's huge.
Yeah. The other thing is, those in power have always studied this book.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to me. So for like 3,000 years, people have been studying this work of literature.
So like Napoleon has read the Iliad.
Yeah, I would imagine, or all of his generals have. Like it was
a over dinner, the Iliad would probably come up routinely.
Yeah, it's like even if you hadn't read it, you would know it because you didn't want to. You would have to catch those references.
It's like, dude, it's the exact same reason that I legitimately started kind of getting into football was so I could have fucking conversations at work, dude.
Yep.
All these dudes come like, you see that game last night? I didn't want to be the asshole who's like, no.
Right.
Sure didn't.
Me every day.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, so I can kind of understand that. That's a cool perspective to know. So this is the Iliad. For those wondering when they're like, why is Battle Buddies doing the Iliad? I think that's a great way to surmise that is like the fucking leaders of armies are reading this and have been for quite some time.
And there's a lot there. Like there's a lot of reasons why they would. And one that we could just focus on easily is leaders. You get a bunch of different leaders. Like it's
Mike Love. Get
those leaders. Where are all the leaders at? There's a lot of leaders and officers. And then one of the like critiques I have of the story in like a modern lens is that I don't get to hear about the enlisted guys very much, right? Like the normal soldiers. But that's to be expected. This is an epic. But what you do get is Homer does a good job of giving you a lot of different successful leaders. And so you kind of see like how different personalities interact. What makes a good leader? What is that good leader's shortcomings? And like, there's a lot there to unpack because it feels pretty for, a lot of these epics, when you read them, they're supposed to be kind of simple away. Like this character is kind of flat and static because they just need to go gain something. And you meet people like Nestor and you're like, this dude is complicated as hell, right? Like this is cool. And so I've really enjoyed that. Another reason why we should probably know this story a little bit is it's really important if you are interested in Rome, right? Anything Roman, because Caesar and the other great families, they all tie their roots back to the Iliad, right? They believe that this war really happened and that when the people left, some of the people that survived from Troy, that those people founded Rome. There's like 25 different versions of these myths, so they are what they are. But there is some truth to it.
It's true to if it's true to somebody, then there is truth to that. Is that not right?
Right. It's at least true that it gains political power. That if you want it, like it'd be like for Biden and Trump to both say that they have mythical bloodline connections to like George Washington.
Okay.
Right. And so it's like, oh, okay, like I have deep roots in this nation because of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And those two, so the two brothers that are supposedly found in Rome, Romulus and Remus.
Romulus and Remus.
Yeah, it's pretty. They have a fun story.
It's all about the nipples of the like wolf. And
all the different. Well, there's different versions, so there's different animals. Sometimes it's like multiple animals. Sometimes it's like a bear. Sometimes, yeah, it's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. I love ancient shit.
Yeah. The other thing with kind of where the story, like why we should care about it. My favorite tie-in, because if you don't know, like in grad school, I studied rhetoric, and I really liked Plato and read a lot of Plato and Socrates. Plato's student was named Aristotle. Aristotle obviously became pretty successful. I think he's all right. He's not as cool as Plato and Socrates, but he's cool. And he gets captured by Alexander the Great's dad at one point, and then he becomes the tutor of Alexander the Great.
Wait, but that's legit?
Yeah, that really happened.
Whoa.
I
didn't know that.
It's kind of nuts.
I didn't know that shit at all.
And so that kind of gives new light to Alexander the Great. Like he was trained by...
classically trained.
Yeah, by the smartest guy living, right? Socrates committed suicide. Plato eventually died. Aristotle, in my mind, not many people are beating him in that time period. So Aristotle would use the Iliad to teach the first principles of statecraft, that diplomacy and power are indispensable and must be used for best effect in tandem. That's from Charles Mill and his essay, Strategy and Grand Strategy, one of the many essays we're going to be quoting here. So basically, the Iliad teaches people, the young officers, that you have to use diplomacy, and it's Clausewitz, right? It's wars, politics by other means. It's both of those things. And you're going to see that almost immediately in this, which is kind of cool. My favorite thing about tying all this stuff in is Alexander the Great slept with under his pillow a copy of the Iliad, hand annotated by Aristotle.
No shit.
Yeah. And that,
damn.
even if, like, I will always believe it, if that's real. Under his pillow. Plutarch wrote about this. He said that he esteemed it a perfect portable treasure of all military virtue and knowledge. That's what Plutarch said about the Iliad.
That's huge.
That's huge.
That sounds like the Bible of war.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Okay. So that's why we should read it. When we're looking at the Iliad, it's in what we call an epic cycle. That means that there's multiple works on this. The Iliad only takes place in a small portion of this great mythical war. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be tying in that isn't directly in the Iliad, and I'll try to let the listener know when I'm doing that. I'm kind of seeing this as like a reader's guide, because I think reading the Iliad or listening to it on Spotify, there's a million versions of it, is really good, but it's really difficult, and it's actually probably better to hear like a summary of what's happening and then to go and listen to somebody read it so you can actually follow along the basics of it. Because it's all good listening to it until they start getting into like a list of all the generals, and you're like, oh man, there's a lot of generals here.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Bible when it's like begot this person, this person. You're like, I can siphon through this pretty quick.
A lot of that.
Lineage, succession, right? Like that's the whole...
It's like where they all came from.
Yeah.
Just trying to show the magnitude of the conflict.
It just used to mean something, Kevin. Yeah. Where we came from used to mean something.
Because it's an epic cycle, it is a little complicated, like the chronology of it, in that you have to be careful with sources, because some people are going to be writing like after Homer, but the events that they're writing about are going to be taking place before Homer. Mm-hmm. And people confuse that a lot. Like the idea, like one misconception we should get out of the way before we even start is that Achilles is not invulnerable in the story. The idea that Achilles is only vulnerable in his Achilles tendon, that was written by a dude later on. So that's not part of this story. The other thing is that Greek and Roman cultures, they didn't have like a set canon, right? Where like they didn't have a Council of Nicaea that set out and eliminated all the weird things that were going on in the Bible, in the New Testament. And then they just made like the one Bible. I'm like, all right, this is the Bible now. Because they don't have that, there's multiple versions of shit. And so like you can get like 8 different versions of Zeus in these different moments. And so you just have to be careful with like, does this happen first or after? It's not always clear. And so that gets a little confusing sometimes. Okay. The other thing is that this story is going to be dealing with a siege. And this is just, I think, interesting. There's a lot of historical sieges that I was reading about. And I just wanted to kind of throw in there a little bit. So Armageddon is a word that we all know, right? We're nervous it's happening at all times, right? It actually is first recorded being used 15th century BCE from a siege that was happening in Egypt at the time. And so that's where the word Armageddon comes from. It comes from a siege. So a siege is a very like unfortunate, natural human thing we've always done. And so I think that's another reason why it's staying relevant as a story. The Civil War had a 40-day siege. The longest siege was 26 years.
Where?
I forget where that one was. I have to look at that source again.
We have a siege coming up, the Siege of Pensacola.
Yep. The Siege of Leningrad, right? That was 2 years, and that cost 2 million Russian lives.
Dude, 2 million.
2 million.
2 years?
2 years, 2 million lives.
Because it's such a slow process. You have to bombard them for so long in order for it to actually to devastate them.
Yep.
Ugh.
And some of you might be like kind of against fiction. Like my wife's grandpa, love the guy. He hates fiction. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit, not much, but just Greek and Latin poets, and I would say all poets, like all peoples that are interested in this kind of stuff. Soldiers and lovers are the same thing. And that's something that we should like get out of the way. Like, yes, this is fiction. Yes, this is like some poetry shit, but soldiers equal lovers. Like they do. I talked about in my series on aggro that aggressive strategies are seen as romantic. And I do mean romance. Like it is romantic. Grand sweeping gestures, just like you're trying to sweep a girl off her feet. Same shit. And I read some essays through it and they're talking about a lot of it is kind of like Jungian. It's about like energy. Like lovers and soldiers, what they have in common is that they both have energy. They have the energy to go do it. They're going to go make their vision a reality. So it's something fun to think about.
That feels pretty like punk rock to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like it. It makes me want to smoke a cigarette. Listeners, I haven't smoked a cigarette for like 3 years. So
I was thinking about, I don't know what we were watching last night, but man, if I was immortal.
You were thinking about cigarettes?
I was like, if I was immortal, I'd be smoking.
Cigarettes rule, bro.
Well, I just wanted to read the Iliad and smoke my pipe. I just wanted to do that.
You know what I'm saying, dude?
Yep.
Sometimes the act of smoking something is very, very calming.
Yes, I love the process of like making my little pipe tobacco.
Read the Lord of the Rings, bro.
Yeah,
when
dude,
they pack
it is
those
hard
pipes.
to read Lord of the Rings and not smoke.
Bro, there's a part where they're like climbing up the mountain. Again, I was like, I cannot go further until I smoke a bowl.
Many times they stop.
There you go.
It's a huge plot point that's out of the movies, but a huge plot point is like that the Hobbiton tobacco is being bought by Isengard, and then that's how they get over. It's super fun. The scoring of the hobbits.
If you're listening and you have the ability to smoke nicotine because you do that, smoke one for me right now.
Okay, so this story, last stuff on this, on like preamble stuff, context. So the story is going to take place in Greece or in Troy, right? This fictional place, but the Greeks are the protagonists of the story. And it's taking place in the pre-Bronze Age collapse. So what we're looking like, the 12th century there, right? Pre-Bronze Age collapse. So before the 1100s. That's when I think the collapse happens.
Okay.
And the Bronze Age collapse. So after the Bronze Age collapse happens, most of that part of like Europe is like wiped out essentially by like the sea people, which is I want to find a better source and do a proper Bronze Age collapse episode one day when I find the right sources that pique my interest. Then we get a couple hundred years later, 8th, 9th century, we're going to get Homer, like we talked about, and Homer is going to tell this story about this pre-Bronze Age people.
And so it's fair to just assume that when Homer came up with this story, it was received well at first?
I think they loved it. Okay. And we don't know, there is arguments about, like, did he make the whole story? Did he add on from other people? I think it's impossible to tell. I do consider him to be the author because the way that I imagine these bards, the way that I would have done it, is I would take a known quantity, like this Trojan War, and I would shape it for my own personal views on things and like my own interests and like phrases that I like to say, right? Stuff like that. Why this is important is that this story is going to reveal things about Homer's modern culture, his contemporary culture, right? Because he's going to talk about like throwing spears and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they really weren't throwing spears in the Bronze Age. And like Greeks weren't. I don't think they like, so stuff like that will happen. Or he will say that they have like bronze armor on. He'll say that all the time. But then I was just reading some quotes for today, and they were talking about iron, and I guess that's okay. But like they're talking about things. I was like, I don't know if that exactly fits. And so it's going to be both cultures kind of smashed together, which is interesting. It's like when we make a movie about a different time period, we're throwing in our own perspectives all the time, right? That's the thing I keep complaining about is when you make a like modern person suddenly, or you make an ancient person suddenly like not.
Dude, I saw it the other day.
Did you?
Dude, I was watching Behind Enemy Lines with Owen Wilson, and there's a scene where in the beginning where they make the thing that launches the jet off of the flight deck, and they have it hit a football, and the football goes in the water, and Owen Wilson goes out and he goes, Wilson! Fucking Castaway was not even out yet when that movie takes place. Yep. So it was like a cultural like shove. Yep. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Dumb. It's all right. But it tells us about both cultures. The poem, how do they write these poems? How do they remember them? They're written in this thing called dialectic hexameter, which I've listened to so many YouTube videos on like how to say it correctly. I can't do it.
That it sounds like the nerdiest shit I've ever heard. Dialectic hexameter?
Yep. So what I will say is I found a quote from C.S. Lewis on it, I think.
Oh, that's dope. Let's hear it.
So he said, and I'm paraphrasing because I found this off of this random YouTube video, but the guy sounded legit, so I like it.
I like it. Let's hear it.
He said that it was the dialectic hexameter is like a leisurely wave that slowly crashes and then recedes.
What?
Yeah. It's cool. If you're interested in
wait. Back up. So you said they write it in something called a dialectic hexameter?
Yeah. What
do you mean they write it in that? Like the device?
So it's a device like, you know how Shakespeare is like, I'm a pentameter.
Yeah.
So dialectic, I don't know how to say it, hexameter is basically, think like hip hop, think 6 beats.
There we go.
The first 4 beats are all the same. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, but usually it's kind of like a long, short kind of thing. Like long, short is 1 beat. And so you repeat that 4 times. Mm-hmm. And then you usually end with a foot, and the foot is like 2 longs. Mm-hmm. So
this is in the same vein as like a haiku. Like what I'm saying is
yes, like a syllable counts.
Yes. So I think that's important for the audience to understand is that it's like the way with which it's written. Yes. Not like, the way they record it, the way it's written.
And when you're reading translations, this does matter because in the Greek, it's always written in this way. And so those that read it in Greek can read this leisurely thing and it kind of makes sense how it's phrased out. But when you translate, it's really difficult to do it, and so you either focus on content or you focus on like the grammar and trying to get this like this meter done correctly. I read 2 versions of the Iliad.
Have you?
Yeah, so I listened to one and took notes, and then I read a different one that I'm still like rereading right now, and I really like the second one. But he's trying to follow more of the like hexameter. He's trying to follow more. It's much more complex. Definitely not like a first read of the Iliad recommendation because you have to know like that Alexandros is what Paris is called in Greek, and so that's what he uses because it fits better in the meter. So he does that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And the point of this is that it's just another one of those tools that shows how the ancient poets did it, right? They learned this like phrasing. So they learned this like meter and this rhythm, kind of like a rapper would, like spoken word poetry.
Okay, so then you would say the best way to say is like the reason they did this is it's a technique.
Yeah, it's so that they could keep going, right? They can go for like an hour because they know the pace of they know the flow of their own story. And the listeners would know too, so they would know how to follow that type of story, that imprinting. It's really cool. And then they're going to use a bunch of repetition. And we'll talk about repetition pretty early on in book 2, I think. I have some notes for that. But the repetition is going to be constant. And there's a lot of reasons why. We'll get into them later on in this series when we just want to take a little break from the content. But I'm doing too much at the beginning, so I don't want to get into all that now. But there's a bunch of reasons why you would do that. So from Britannica, let's just start with...
Britannica.
A quick little summary. In the traditional accounts, Paris, the son of the Trojan king, ran off with Helen, the wife of Menelaus of Sparta, whose brother Agamemnon then led a Greek expedition against Troy. The ensuing war lasts 10 years, finally ending with the Greeks pretended to withdraw, leaving behind a large wooden horse with a raiding party concealed inside. When the Trojans brought the horse into their city, the hidden Greeks opened the gates to their comrades, who then sacked Troy, massacred its men, and carried off its women.
Surprise, motherfucker!
This version was recorded centuries later. The extent to which it reflects actual historical events is not known.
Okay, so that was written later than when in the time place when that whole story came out, is what you're saying?
Kind of. I'm saying that's what we now would consider the epic, is right. That whole story.
Yep.
And the Iliad is going to be a small piece of that story.
Okay, because the Iliad did not have that portion in it when it was originally written.
Or it did, and that's just not what Homer would say when he would travel. Maybe another guy said that when they traveled. So there's a lot of interesting things that we could think about with that.
Man, this would make a Star Wars fan's brain explode.
Yes. Yeah, expanded universe, like, you don't even know. You don't even know what an expanded universe is.
It's not canon! Disney ruined everything!
Because I like this version of canon, because is it good? Right, that's basically the measure of is it canon or not. Like, do we like it?
Yeah.
Because if we like it, then we write it down and we keep it, and that's all it takes. I like that, right?
Interesting.
If you've watched Troy or know anything about the Trojan War or the Iliad, you know it's all about this lady named Helen. We can't really get into the story of the Iliad without at least just making sure that we all know that women's roles are going to be, not great. I made sure to read a modern feminist book on Greek female characters.
Is that the Song of Achilles?
No, that's just, Song of Achilles is just dope.
Okay.
This was, I forget the name, but I'll put the name in. But she talks about all these Greek mythological characters and like how they were probably perceived at the time, how we perceive them now, what are issues, what's problematic about it all. Very good book, very interesting. But Helen is a product of Zeus, who turned into a swan and raped a nice lady.
What do you mean she's a product of Zeus?
So Zeus turned into a swan, raped this queen.
What?
The queen then laid an egg.
Why is he raping queens?
Zeus rapes everybody.
For why?
Greek gods are no joke.
But make me understand why he's raping people.
I don't know.
So...
I think part of it is rape was just more common.
Okay. Ooh, don't love that answer. So, when you, the next time, turn on that cute little movie on Disney Plus for your kids called Hercules,
right,
and you see Zeus, rapist.
He's just a huge rapist.
Come here, son!
So I think rape is a product of the time. More acceptable. I also think it's a story device, right? It's how you put story elements in.
Okay, but like, I'm a bard. I'm singing about this, and then I mention it's like, and then Zeus raped the person, da-da-dee-da-doo.
Well, maybe that's a tragedy. Who knows?
Zeus raped. Okay, but it is. But you said it's a normal thing at the time. So is it going to be perceived at the audience as like a negative thing or just a thing?
So this came up in the book. It's good questions about who are these people performing for. Are they performing for men or are they performing for women? Because that matters. Who's your audience? And her general view is the men probably weren't that affected by these parts of the story. Which
you don't say.
Which I think is accurate. And so I think that makes it sound like it is an indifferent plot device.
Oh, God. Okay.
Because he needs...
In my current brain, this is very jarring to hear rape. But what you're saying is like, no, don't worry. This is very normal for them to all read this.
Yeah, well, and I think, like, yes, be upset. Like, it's not good.
Also, Zeus doesn't exist.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's okay.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... Okay, so... It's not good. You can understand it in the context of the story because Helen needs to be the most beautiful woman who's ever lived.
Objectively,
by everybody.
Right. Meaning, that's another thing I don't understand. Because beauty...
Right? Subjective.
...is 100% in the eye of the beholder, as they say, right?
Sure.
So beauty to me, like when I see those UFC chicks with like the turtle shell abs,
right.
and I know that she can beat me up, that's hot.
Right.
But that's not hot to you.
Right.
Maybe it is hot to you.
Yeah. I think women are beautiful.
Okay, but yeah, period, across the board, right? So,
so if she needs to be this mythically beautiful woman,
she's objectively beautiful.
Then her having divine blood would help that case, right? It would help the audience understand that better. They would get there faster.
I see.
That's my take on it.
I like that take.
Now, is that right or wrong, or is that how I would write the story? No, I would probably not do that.
You'd leave the rape part out, probably.
Yeah, maybe he gives her a rose. Maybe he courts her over many years. In the modern retelling of the blood of Zeus. Yeah, Swipes right. That's what the anime Zeus, Blood of Zeus. She falls in love with him.
It's better move.
I
could see the people in the writing room being like, let's go ahead and do something different than rape. Like, just have him fall in love.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so she's real nice looking. Her father is the king of Sparta. And he literally just had a line of dudes trying to marry her from the time that she was a kid. She may have been kidnapped at 7 and impregnated a couple times. It's not good. Her life is not good.
So not only is she objectively beautiful, but she is also objectified.
Oh, yeah, immediately.
Okay.
It's bad.
Okay.
And
this is not by choice on her.
No, her story's bad, man. Like, it sucks.
Okay.
You feel for Helen if you really start diving into her and the other stories besides the Iliad.
Yeah, this isn't sounding great for Helen so far.
No, I would, out of all the characters, I wouldn't want to be Paris because Paris is a little bitch. But after that, I would not want to be Helen. I'd rather be Agamemnon than Helen.
Okay.
Because it just sucks for her. She has no choice. So, but we get to an interesting plot point here in the story, which is that all of these men in Greece want to marry her and like adamant about it. And so all of a sudden the king of Sparta is kind of in a tricky spot because if he says yes to one, he has to say no to everybody else. And what's the ramifications of this? This is where diplomacy starts kicking in, right? And these stories are more sophisticated than we give them credit for. The human mind has not changed in 3,000 years. It's the same mind that we are dealing with right now, right? So this is still very sophisticated, complicated stuff.
Dick pics.
Does not change.
Dick pics have never gone away. They've never changed. They've always been here.
Yeah. His fear is twofold. It's the same fear, though, I guess. So if he says yes, he says no to everybody else. When he says no to everybody else, what's to stop them from attacking him in retribution and attacking whoever her suitor is and her? And she's already been kidnapped before in some of these other stories. So, like, he has to really figure this out. So he welcomes them all into his castle. He invites everybody in. So all the leaders that want to marry her show up. It's a big deal. And he does it all right. It's called Xenia. This is a really important Greek term that we'll get into as we go further on. And it's huge in the Odyssey, which is another reason the Odyssey is really fun to read. Xenia is, how do you treat a stranger that comes to your door?
Whoa.
And there's rules. And the rules are awesome. And I wish we had more of it. Because right now, what would you do if a stranger came and knocked on your door and said, like, I'm really tired? But, like, they're pretty disheveled and scary looking.
Oh. Yeah. That's not going to go great.
Right.
I'll be honest.
No, absolutely. That's not how our culture works.
No. But when solicitors come to my door...
You are very kind to your solicitors. Your wife has backed this up, that Spencer is very kind. He gives them water, talks to them. I give them
the time of day.
Yep.
Same with Mormons and stuff. I talk to them.
Which is good. So you are following the best Xenia that we have.
Yay, right now. Xenia Spence, they call me.
So in Greece, part of Xenia is you need to be kind to everybody, especially if they're at your station. If they match your station and they come to your house, because they might be a god, and you don't know that. So it's kind of a fun. That's a good use of like.
And
religion.
We're calling Helen a god because she was.
No, she's not a god.
Is she demi-god?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Don't get too bogged down with that kind of stuff. If you have god blood in you, you might be more heroic or stronger, but maybe not. Also, it's not always clear.
Okay.
There's no consistency on this.
Understood.
Shit. Yeah. So he follows the Xenia, right? Has them all come over, so they can't fight right now because he invited them all in, and they would be violating a huge deal. This comes up later, this Xenia thing, like almost immediately in the story. So Odysseus, who will be one of our favorite characters in the story. He comes up with this great idea. Well, why don't all of the men in this room right now
show each other their dicks?
Agree.
Who's got the biggest dick?
That would be Odysseus' move for sure. Why doesn't everyone make a blood oath or an oath right now in this room of welcoming that whoever is chosen as the husband, everybody else will protect that marriage? Odysseus is dope. And the only thing he wants, he says, to make this fair, I won't put my name in the hat. Instead, I'll take one of the other sisters.
I gotta say, this is a diplomatic move.
Dude, Odysseus is the king of diplomacy.
Okay.
He's the best at it.
Yeah, this is a gangster ass move.
Yeah. So if you're interested in this part of the story, this is there's a modern retelling called Song of Achilles. It's awesome, and they do this scene really well. And it makes Odysseus look really cool. So recommend Song of Achilles for this because it's really good. So anyway, in not necessarily the Song of Achilles, but in the classic version, the Menelaus is chosen, Menelaus of Atreus. And I'm not going to go over their whole story.
Did they say why he was chosen? Or is it like a straws
I think in some versions it's because Helen gets to choose and she chooses him. I think in other versions, most stuff that I was reading earlier was more of he offered the most money. You know, women have a quantifiable value.
That is a thing.
Yeah. Women aren't treated great in this time period, guys.
Currently, sometimes women are not treated great.
Yeah. But like in this time period, it's just bad. Like they are just
sounds awful, bro.
They're an actual quantity.
Meaning
like they have a numerical value.
They can be traded for cattle.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
So that happens, and everybody now has to follow what Odysseus says. That oath. It's a big deal, right? Because they made an oath and they were following the Xenia. They were all following their customs and their beliefs. So you can't necessarily back down off of this. Okay. I'm not going to go into Menelaus and Agamemnon's curse thing. It's too complicated. It'll take too long. But they are from like weird cursed house kind of thing. But they're really powerful. Agamemnon, his older brother especially.
Okay.
But what we do need to know a little bit is Paris. Because this is what's going to kick off the whole war. So Paris, he was born a prince of Troy.
Is this Orlando Bloom?
It's Orlando Bloom, who does a great job of making
look like a little bitch.
Like a little bitch.
Like a little bitch.
Yeah. The casting in Troy is phenomenal. All of the casting is phenomenal. I love all the cast.
Hector as my boy.
Eric Bana. Yeah. And Odysseus as what's his face, who never is a lead role and always crushes his roles.
Wait, who is Odysseus?
I forget. It's the dude who's always talking to Brad Pitt. The older guy. Not Patroclus.
Oh.
Yeah. That's Odysseus.
On the ship.
Yep. No, not the Myrmidon. It's the guy who comes in, convinces him to go fight.
I'm going to rewatch the movie. I promise.
We're watching it together.
That's right. Patreon.
Hit
us up. $2.99.
Yeah, help us out. Or not. It doesn't matter.
Dude.
It would be cool if you did.
We put a lot of effort in this show.
A lot. Read so many books. Okay. So there's a prophecy that Paris will grow up and cause like the death of Troy, essentially. And so a plot device, and again, these plot devices like the gods raping, and this other one that we're about to, the exposure of kids, probably because these things happen and they're unfortunately commonplace, but also these are oral stories, and so there needs to be certain phrasings and certain plot points to have the bard remember them correctly. So what do? They obviously leave the baby out to die in the elements. This also was a practice, unfortunately, of this time period. Okay, so they do that. It doesn't take. He's going to come back after he gets helped by some shepherds. And then eventually he gets visited by Hermes and these 3 goddesses. And they have this weird apple. And the apple says, "To the fairest." And for some reason, he gets chosen as the dude who has to choose which of these 3, impossible beauty gods is the fairest one. And so they all offer him different things. And eventually, Aphrodite says that she will make sure Paris marries the most beautiful woman in the world if he chooses her. So he obviously chooses her.
Okay. But at the moment, Helen is the most beautiful woman in the world, right?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
And I don't know if she's married at this moment. Chronology is all messed up. So the apple is like an interesting story. It actually ties back into Achilles' mom. It's kind of fun.
The apple?
Yeah. The apple that they have says, "To the fairest." So the god of strife wasn't invited to the wedding of Achilles' parents. And so she just showed...
This is the tea.
Dude,
this is the tea.
It's
right
dope.
Here.
So they have like this wedding, and it's like mortals and gods. It's pretty dope. Because Achilles' dad only got his mom to marry her because he wrestled her and like didn't let her go. And so she had to like submit. It was like kind of wild. And then, so the goddess strife just shows up, and she's like, "Where's my invitation?" And then just throws this apple, and it says, "To the fairest," and then disappears. And the 3 goddesses are like, "This apple's mine because I'm the fairest." And the other ones are like, "No, I'm the fairest."
Okay, so is the apples, in your opinion here, you're the English teacher, this is symbolizing...
It's like vanity.
Greed.
Yeah. This is vanity, hubris.
Okay.
Yeah. So eventually Paris from Aphrodite realizes that the woman is Helen. So what does Paris do? He's now back in Troy. He's back to being a prince. He goes and takes a little trip to Sparta. And remember that thing Xenia, right? How you're supposed to treat guests. There's also Xenia for how you're supposed to behave as the guest. This is why I don't put fault on you for not letting in the disheveled guy, because he doesn't follow the Xenia either. We don't have an established Xenia for both of us, right? If a guy showed up at my door and I had expectations and he had expectations, it would be a different story. Like codified. You're allowed to come in. You're allowed to come in for 6 hours, right? You're allowed to take a bath, right? Stuff like, right? Just like really measurable things. Well, one thing is you can't steal from the guy that lets you into their house. And this is where, again, women are going to take kind of a hard turn here, because Paris is going to take Helen. We don't know if it's willingly or not. But he definitely is also going to take the purple tablecloths. And that's in the same sentence as taking Helen, as like value-wise, because purple is really hard to make.
Got it. Got it.
And so...
Comparing her to an object is
and like not even like a grade, just like a purple
tablecloth is pretty low on the bid on the bidding.
So it's not great.
Yeah, no, it's not good at all.
Menelaus coming home.
What I'm imagining right now. I'm imagining an episode of like The Price is Right. Where you have to like guess
it's exactly what it's like. What is your value? Like $1. Yeah, it's not good. And I always imagine Menelaus coming back into his castle and being like, "Where's Helen?" Like, "Oh, she got taken by Paris." "Where the fuck are my tablecloths?"
Those motherfuckers were purple. Do you have any idea
how many little shells?
Jesus Christ, dude.
They have to squeeze those little shells.
The purple guy only comes in town every 2 months. Every 2 fortnights, I should say.
It is interesting to read about how they make purple. It is hard to make at that time period.
I get it.
Yeah, so that's a huge violation of Xenia. And this as a plot device is really clever, because now we have all these Greek men that are sworn to protect the marriage, now needing to protect the marriage because now Helen's gone. And it was a violation of Xenia, one of the most important Greek customs of that time period. So these men literally can't say no.
So Paris is the one who fucked this all up.
Paris fucked it all up.
What was this why did he feel like he could just break these cultural norms?
Paris is a little bitch.
Okay.
He is. Paris is not great. Paris is not who you want to be.
He thinks that he is above Xenia.
Yeah, I don't think he gives a hell. I think he's Trojan, so he's not following Xenia exactly. But I would imagine they're sister cultures, and so they would have their version of Xenia.
They would at least know what it is.
Yeah, because they worship the same gods. They have Apollo, so they should.
Then yes, because that shit's inexorably intertwined and shit. Dude.
Yeah. Okay, so that's basically all we need to know. The only other important part before we start getting into the story is Menelaus' older brother. His name is Agamemnon, and he's going to lead all the Greeks, the Mycenaeans or whatever they're called at that time period, to go to fight.
The Mycenaeans?
Yeah. Again, if you're interested in this part of the story, I highly, highly recommend Song of Achilles. It is a fantastic read.
Is it there's 3 or there's 2?
There's Song of Achilles, which is all about this. It's all about Achilles as a kid, all the stuff that's not in the Iliad, and then it ends with some of the Iliad stuff. And then she does another book called Circe, which takes place with...
Yeah, that's supposed to be fucking incredible.
Circe's good. I like Song of Achilles more.
Interesting.
For a couple of reasons. But Song of Achilles also has a couple plot points I don't love. But Circe's really good. And Circe grows on you as you read. As you read, you're like, oh, this is incredible. But that's a witch god. And what's cool about that story is that she's a god, so she's alive for 1,000 years. So she meets Jason and the Argonauts. She meets Odysseus a couple times. She meets Dementor. She meets all these cool people, famous people that are building things in different moments in time. So that's fun. And she is cool that she is a really, really low ranking god and tries to develop herself to be strong, which is fun.
That is cool.
Yeah. I like it a lot. All right. So we're going to just now jump ahead 9 years.
Okay. Yeah, jump ahead indeed.
Jump ahead 9 years into the siege. That's where the story starts. An epic always starts with invoking our muses. So sing, muses, sing. It's usually something like that is what they say. Your muses, if you don't know, your muses live in your walls, obviously, geniuses. And they are the ones that provide you with inspiration. They connect you to the divine. Mm-hmm. Plato talks about this a lot. It's called Cora, right, where your ideas come from. Oh, damn. It's an actual space. It's a non-corporeal space that can be filtered into
so life forms and shit.
Yeah, it's so the Cicades, those are people that got too close to the divine. They heard song, so they started singing. And they couldn't stop. So they stopped being human. And so then they became perfect singers.
Damn, it's like the, this is probably a horrible example, but the dude who became the Joker in The Dark Knight.
Oh, yeah.
It's he committed so much to his part that it became
Heath
him.
Ledger.
Yeah, Heath Ledger, thank you. But that's where my mind goes when I think that is when your muse
you get lost in it. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. That's intense. I think we all have had, especially you and I. Yeah, we've had hobbies that have absolutely become this is my identity. Yeah, now.
I'm manic for a while.
So interesting. So what are they called again? This is the ones
the muses.
The muses. Yeah.
So there's 8 muses classically, and they give you different inspiration for things. And so a bard would invoke them before he would begin.
Really?
So sing, muses, sing. And then they would, because you were asking, help me tell this story.
That's metal as fuck.
I know. So the lady, if you're interested in the muses stuff and why we should bring it back, the author of the book, Eat, Pray, Love, has a TED Talk on it.
Truly.
And it's really good. I show it to my kids a lot because she talks about how it was good in the time period because if your story sucked or it didn't work that day, you blame it on the muse or the genius in your wall. I had a bad muse today. You know, like the muse didn't talk to me. Well, we see this a lot with the gods. The gods will whisper, and sometimes they won't whisper. Like the gods weren't whispering today. What can I do?
Wow.
And so that distance helps you keep your identity.
Wow. Can you name one of the muses for me?
I don't know the 8 names offhand.
But like they serve different purposes?
The 8, yeah, I believe so.
That sounds dope.
Yeah.
I will be Googling that when I take my next shit.
Yep. My study was more on Cora, like the philosophical side, the rhetorical side from Plato and Socrates. So like Cora, the idea of like connecting with inspiration to get ideas and like create ideas, which was a lot of fun. But I like the idea of distancing myself from my art so that I don't get so impacted when my art doesn't do what I want it to do.
Right. It's almost like being in your own stink for so long, right? When you can't smell your own stink.
And
That's
she says that that's why we have so much artistic suicide.
Wow.
Is that people put too much of their identity into their creation. And so then they are killing themselves to create, whereas they should be getting inspired to create. Wow. And I like that. I like that for young people trying to, create art long term.
Yeah, you're in control, dude.
Yeah.
Be in control of the things that you produce.
But it's hard because, like, I started so late with that understanding. I started just trying to create and then, like, being devastated every time nothing worked out.
For sure.
And then just kind of giving up on it. And I wish I had that kind of mentality earlier on.
The muses weren't whispering that.
They weren't. Yeah, they didn't tell me that.
That is fucking cool. That was a breakthrough education moment for me.
Nice.
Learning something.
Yeah.
That was dope.
Okay, so we're starting with book 1. Book 1's going to be talking. It's going to start with this ransom of Chryseis. I think I'm saying her name right. So what happened is Agamemnon captured this girl Chryseis. It's his slave girl. He really likes her.
He just captured him a slave girl.
He really likes her.
Okay.
He's a big fan of her. He'll go into some reasons why. He says that she's more clever than his wife and prettier than his wife, and his wife is not ugly. His wife is the sister of Helen.
So she's probably pretty good looking, yeah?
She's probably great.
Yeah. She's the sister of the most beautiful person on earth.
Yeah. She's cool. And in some place she ends up getting her revenge on Agamemnon later on. So that's fun.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some cool stories on that later.
Yours, girl.
Yeah. Anyway, so Chryseis' father is like a priest. So he goes to Agamemnon and he's like, hey, I have a ransom for you for my daughter. This is like a common thing. We talked about this a little bit with Thermopylae. Like you capture royalty a lot of the time and then you sell them back. Mm-hmm. This is warfare, right? It's not just about killing. It's about economics, right? It's about wealth. And so this is a standard procedure. And Agamemnon's like, I'm good.
You can keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can keep your whatever you're going to offer me. Like I'm straight. And then the guy's like, fuck you. Like, I don't know what you're thinking about this. So then he prays to Apollo, who's a Trojan god. They're all Greek gods, but Apollo sides with the Trojans in this conflict. And Apollo's like, yeah, that's not right that my servant is being not honored correctly. So then he puts a plague on all the Greeks at the start. So this epic starts with all the Greeks suffering a plague, and they're all just like dying left and right.
Damn.
Which again, we're going to be jumping back and forth between fantasy and reality. In reality, a long siege, you have all these people nearby, like on a beach, not great conditions. Yeah, of course there's plagues. There's plagues going on all the time, right? Like, this is going to be happening. So Achilles is like, I need to figure out what the fuck is going on here. Because he just sees this plague. He doesn't understand why the plague is happening. So Achilles goes and finds the priests. And what's going on? Why is Apollo killing us here? And the priest says he wants protection. And Achilles responds. So we're getting some Achilles lines right away. I want you guys to hear some of these characters because the characters are dope. He says, no man while I still live and have sight upon this earth shall lay heavy hands on you beside the hollow ships of all the Danaans, not even if it's Agamemnon you mean, who claims to be far the noblest of all the Achaeans, which is like Greeks. So Achilles is basically saying, no, we're going to go talk to Agamemnon and tell him that he fucked up with Apollo. And this priest, he's like, this isn't the priest that offered the ransom. This is just a normal priest that is in the Greeks. And the priest is like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go tell Agamemnon that he's wrong. I'm not going to go get killed for this. And Achilles just lays down that sweet ass line. And I love that, like, no one, as long as I have sight on the earth, is going to lay heavy hands on you. Like, that's dope. Like, no one's gonna cause violence for you. And just the fact that he's already in the first couple lines of this book challenging Agamemnon, like, nope, he doesn't get to do shit to you.
Yeah.
That's dope. So anyway, they go to Agamemnon. Agamemnon's like, I've sacrificed enough. And he's kind of referencing here the fact that, and this doesn't happen in the story, but it supposedly takes place before, that he sacrificed his daughter, Iphigenia, to the god Artemis to get some wind.
Hold on. Iphigenia?
Iphigenia, yep.
Iphigenia Doubtfire.
So he had a really sweet daughter named Iphigenia.
Yeah.
And the story is that when they were getting ready to head to Troy, there was no wind. And no one could figure out why. And finally some priests figured out.
You gotta sacrifice some shit.
Well, they figured out that Agamemnon done fucked up because I think he said that he was better than a god. He said he's better than Artemis, who's the god of the hunt. Now, you don't really ever say you're better than a god, especially in Greek culture. So it's not good. It doesn't work out for you. So why boast that you're better than that god? I don't get it. But such as people like Agamemnon. So they're like, you're going to need a blood sacrifice for this to make this right with her. So he's like, all right, I'm going to bring my daughter over here. And then he slits his daughter's throat. And then they get some wind. It's kind of confusing.
Damn.
There's some other tellings of the story where like she's replaced with like a goat or something. But
either way, she's gone.
Yeah, she's probably gone. She's either killed or Artemis whisks her away to live with her. But anyway, that's why Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife, is not a huge fan of Agamemnon anymore.
Okay, got it. So that's not common practice. Right. Sacrifice.
No, yeah, blood sacrifice. Song of Achilles does a good job of showing like how taboo it is.
Okay.
Like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like that's an ancient practice.
Okay.
Like that's a bad one.
Got it.
But he kind of has a point of like, I've sacrificed enough and like, I don't need to sacrifice anymore right now.
Understood. So this is what he's referring to. Got it.
He says, I want to have my troops safe, not facing destruction, but you must find me a prize at once, so I'm not the only aggrieved left prizeless. So
that sounds really douchey.
Agamemnon is...
I need a brain.
He's saying, right, if you take her, then I don't have her, and then everybody else will have things, and I won't have the things.
Yeah. Yeah, bro, you sound like a 5-year-old, my dude. Wow.
Agamemnon has a bit of a temper. So does Achilles.
That. Okay.
So Achilles responds. I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but I like some of these early quotes. You clothes horse for shamelessness, mind obsessed with profit. How could any Achaean be prompt to obey your orders to march to war or with might face men in battle? I did not come here on account of any Troy's spearmen. Why should I fight them? In no way have they ever wronged me. He continues on calling Agamemnon like a dog face and saying that Achilles will be heading home from this because he's so mad at him. So Achilles immediately is like kind of staying true to his word of like, I'm not scared of this dude.
And protect you for sure.
Now we need the context of this is year 9 of this siege.
Mm-hmm.
Tensions are probably running a little high.
They're getting tired.
Mm-hmm. They're a little over this. So Achilles is like, you're so dumb. I don't know why you're doing this. I'm going home. Agamemnon will respond a little bit later. Run away if your heart so bids you. Fair be it from me to beg you to stay here for my sake. With me are many others who will treat me with honor. He'll continue later on. I shall send you back, but the fair cheek Briseis, your prize. I'll come to your hut myself and take, that you may know well how much stronger I am than you, and that the others may fear to address me as an equal, to confront me face to face.
Fuck around and find out?
Yeah, Agamemnon's like, you have a slave girl that's also like pretty nice. You got Briseis. And sure, you can go, but I'm taking Briseis back. A little bit about how all this works. Normally in these conflicts, my understanding is like after a raid, right? Let's say they raid a nearby town or a farm. All of that loot is pooled together in front of the leader. So this would be Agamemnon. Then he divvies it up. And so somehow Achilles got this wonderful slave girl, Briseis. Probably just a slave, like probably not doing great things with her, just enjoying her as a piece of property. Song of Achilles makes the attempt of like, it's more than that, which I appreciate, but you know, it is what it is. So Achilles doesn't like that. That's his property. He just got her. He likes her.
Yeah, fair point.
So he's just ready to kill Agamemnon right then and there, which is wild, right? He's going to strike down the leader of thousands and thousands of soldiers with no hesitation. So Athene drops down. Athene, she's known as having like, I think she's described in this moment as having like a terrible radiance. Like she's terribly beautiful. She has gray eyes. And I like her as like this terribly beautiful warrior kind of person. You don't fuck with Athene. Mm-hmm. And so Athene goes invisible down to Achilles and just kind of talks to him being like, don't fuck up right now. Like do not kill him right now. And this is where the gods are kind of like muses here. They're just like whispering things to you a lot of the time. They're just invisible. No one can see them. And so Achilles gives in. He's like, all right, I won't kill you. But he does give some good insults. He says, you wine-sotted wretch, dog-faced, deer-hearted, not once have you dared to arm yourself for battle with your troops or join in an ambush with the Achaean chieftains.
He's calling him a bitch.
He's calling him a bitch.
He's calling him a little pussy.
I immediately see Alexander the Great taking a note right here, being like, all right, so your greatest warrior can use the fact that you're not on the battle line against you.
Wouldn't you? I would.
Absolutely. If you needed that equity, that's political leverage. It's right there. It's obvious, and it's valuable.
Yeah.
So I see Alexander the Great, who's always known for being in the front ranks, being like, okay, I won't give my opponent on my own side that leverage by avoiding it. Like I can just avoid it. So the diplomacy's there already, right? Like there's things to learn. So Achilles is going to end with an oath. One day the need for Achilles will hit the Achaean sons, every man, jack of them. Then for all your grief, you'll not be able to help them. When many at the hands of Hector, killer of men, fall dying, you'll eat out the heart within you, incensed that you failed to honor the best of the Achaeans. So Achilles is the best of the Achaeans. Nobody is as powerful as him. There's some terms for that we'll use later on about like being the best or dying or having your heroic moment. There's like some Greek things for that.
But it's legit. He is the best.
Yeah, he's the best.
Somehow, not just saying that.
Somehow within these 9 years, Achilles has proven himself time and again. Nobody can stand up to him, except for maybe Hector on the Trojan side.
And I'm getting this from the Hercules Disney movie, but like the same dude who trained Hercules is the same dude who trained Achilles.
Chiron.
I don't know.
Yeah, Chiron's a Minotaur.
Yeah.
In some versions,
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Danny DeVito. I love Chiron in Song of Achilles. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the book, is him just talking to them.
Is he a character? He's like an interesting character?
Yeah, because he's a mentor. So the Minotaurs... No, he's not a Minotaur, sorry. Centaurs. The Minotaur is a beast thing. But the Centaurs, they don't have like a great relationship with Greeks normally. And so like the fact that this one trains heroes,
it's cool.
And
it's different.
Yeah, he like dies from a poison related to Hercules or something. It's interesting. Yeah. So anyway, we're in a tough spot right now, right? You're thinking about all the other soldiers, because this is an audience, right? This is everyone was dying of the plague, so everybody kind of grouped together to have this audience, and shit's going down. And if I was a normal soldier, I'd be like, I'm over this shit. Like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm not feeling great about everything, because I can't go home. I can't go jump on a boat right now. I'll be killed as a coward. Can't go forward because I run to the Trojans. They'll kill me. So Nestor, who is a hella old king. He's the oldest guy by far. He's too old, and he hates being old.
King Nestor.
Yeah, Nestor's dope.
Okay.
Nestor's probably... No, I'm not going to say he's dope. It's because everybody has their moments, but Nestor's dope. So he kind of tells them that he fought with legends that would shadow both Achilles and Agamemnon. He's like, listen.
Who do you know who he's referring to?
No, that's one of the great mysteries of the story. And I dug into it. We don't know who he's referring to.
Speculations?
No, none of it survived because it would all be purely oral tradition.
Interesting.
Because he's talking about like pre-Hercules stories. So, because I think the chronology chronology is all up in the air, but it usually, I think, goes like Hercules, then Achilles. Mm-hmm. And so this would be before Hercules, because Hercules is within their lifetime, I think, or Heracles. So who knows? Some amazing...
Hard to say.
Yeah. But I like it, right? It's fun having that kind of mystery. Like, what the heck was that story about?
Yeah, that's cool.
So he used that as like an ethos, right? You need to listen to me because I actually fought with like real dudes and you guys are nothing, which is a dope thing to say, especially if they all know the story. Like, yes, yeah, this is fair. Tell us what's real. And he says they both need to chill out because there's a war going on, you dummies. Like, we're in 9 years of a war. Like, I'm eye on the prize here. And then they have a pretty cool discussion about greatness. We get reminded that Achilles, his mother is a goddess, and that he's the best fighter of that generation. But that Agamemnon rules more men, and he rules than anybody, especially Achilles. Like, Agamemnon controls an enormous population, and he's controls by the right of Zeus. Zeus gave him a scepter, or he has Zeus's scepter somehow.
So he thinks he's big, and he thinks he's all big and bad.
Yeah, but Nestor agrees with him. He's like, listen, you guys are both correct. Like, Achilles is the best fighter, and Agamemnon, you are ordained correctly to be leading us. So understand your stations correctly. Like, you can have multiple things be true.
Know your role.
Yeah, and I like that because, you think about political discourses right now, it's negating the whole person. Yeah. And this is not that. This is Nestor being a voice of reason, being like, you don't have to negate the entire other person. Like, you can be the greatest fighter, and he can be a leader that's a good leader. Like, he's supposed to be our leader right now. Those are two truths that we are dealing with.
Yeah.
Which I like.
It seemed like that's how the presidential debate was a couple weeks ago or whatever, when like they weren't saying what they were good at. They were saying what the other person was bad at.
Absolutely. Definition by negation. It's a powerful tool, inserting naysayers and shit, but it shouldn't be your only method. There's so many other methods. Good news, listeners. The muse Calliopeia has just visited me and has shown me original documents that I had never before seen about the soldiers trying to get Briseis from Achilles. Never before heard or seen. We're the first ones. This is real. This definitely isn't made up stuff we just made up in our garage.
Oi, Eurybates, that was some wild fucking shit out there, innit?
I guess.
What do you mean, you guess? Achilles had his sword drawn, ready to cut down Agamemnon. I don't think I've ever seen him restrain himself from killing anything before.
What are we doing here, Talthybius?
What do you mean? We've been ordered to get Briseis from Achilles, Agamemnon's punishment for losing Chrysis.
No, I mean, what are we doing here, man? We have been fighting this war for 10 years. What do we have to show for it? You got those nice bronze shoulder guards you stripped off that noble-born Trojan brat we killed, 5 years ago now? What does that cost you? How old is your boy now?
Yeah, well, in bruises, 14 now, I suppose.
And what has he lost? What if you die on the field tomorrow and those shoulder guards are stripped off of you with the rest of your armor? What glory will you bring and gain if Hector kills you without ever even noticing that you exist?
Oi, what do you bloody want from me? This is a war of kings and gods. What can you and I do against such power? Oh, and Hector? Don't you worry about Hector. We're about to confront Achilles. He could kill us both before our minds could even begin comprehending what tricks of light flashed before our eyes.
My spear's starting to splinter again.
Yeah, I have some leather to bind it for you for the time being.
You're a regular Festus. You walk like him, too. Oh shit. They're the Myrmidon black ships.
Now keep an eye out for their brown armor. Who knows what Achilles told them?
Do you really think the Myrmidons were ants that Zeus turned into people?
Does it matter?
Man, wish we didn't have to walk through the sand all the time. Every day I feel smaller.
It is timeless, isn't it?
And I am not.
How much of us needs to be removed before we become polished?
I think the fates use our discarded flesh for the sands of time. Or perhaps they weave the flesh into strands of string for new souls. I wouldn't mind that, really. At least there would be some meaning. There, in between the ship and the tent. Do you see him?
I see his edges. I can never bring myself to look directly at him. The best of all the Greeks is a black hole where nothing, not even light, can escape. I can only ever approximate his location by the refracted landscapes that forebodes his grotesque and brilliant existence. I can't stop shaking.
Me either. Oh shit, he's getting up. Quick, act like we know what we're doing.
Greetings, you hares, messengers of Zeus and of mankind. Come closer. No, come closer. For me, it's not you who are guilty, but Agamemnon, who sent you both here on account of the girl Briseis. Very well then, Patroclus, go fetch the girl out, hand her over to these two to take away. And let them be witnesses before the blessed gods and before all mortal men. Yes, and before the ruthless king. If ever hereafter there shall be need of me to ward off shameful havoc from the host at large, how he seethes in the destructive mind with no idea how to look at once before and after to ensure that the Achaeans might fight safely beside their ships.
So what happens next? The guards are gonna... So Agamemnon's guards, they're going to take Briseis. And Achilles kind of... It's not my favorite Achilles moment because he goes to the water and starts crying.
Oh no. He's like weeping?
No, he's not like rage crying.
Oh, he's pissed.
He's like, Mama!
So he's angry.
Mother! You know that song? No, not that one.
What song are you talking about?
Mother! I don't remember that part. It's like you just repeat. It's the refrain.
Yeah, that really narrows it down.
I know.
Okay, so he's upset.
So he's upset. So he calls for his mom. His mom's a sea goddess. So she comes out, and he's like, "Mom, they took my slave, and I want her. Can you make it hard for all of them?" And his mom says yes, and it's kind of weird. So
I sure will, baby.
yeah,
I'll
she's
make it hard for them.
just gonna.
Why is she as a sea god, like, or whatever goddess? Why is that going to make her? Why does she have the power to make it hard for them?
Well, that's interesting. So she somehow did a favor for Zeus at one point.
Did she let him rape her?
Potentially. No, I forget exactly how. Anyway, he's in her debt somehow. Okay. And
Oh, interesting. Okay.
in at least a little bit, like politically. Like
Yeah.
And sea goddess, the sea gods often are related to like some titans and stuff, at least if I'm following the Song of Achilles and Circe stories.
Okay.
And that may not all be correct, but it's more fun that way. So there is some like back and forth, like you have to measure the political discourse correctly. So she goes to Zeus when Hera's not there. Hera is Zeus's wife. Not a fan of other people. And she goes to Zeus and gives him like the supplication. So supplication is pretty legit. Supplication's like you go on a knee, you put a hand like on like their right thigh, and then you take your other hand and you like place it under their chin. And that's like supplication, meaning like I'm asking like the favor of favors. Like I'm asking you to be my Lord. And you know it's accepted because they don't say anything. They give you a deep nod. It's like a dope like court royalty thing.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Is that a thing that's still used today? Or has it ever been like used? Like that's like is that a legit cultural thing?
I think it was
Supplication?
I read it enough times in the last 6 months. Like I've read through supplication or supplication-like acts in court scenes.
Interesting.
Well, we do like fealty, right? So like serfs, like when serfdom was a thing, like knight stuff, like you would offer, I think, as like the serf or the knight to the Lord, like fealty. So like you would bow to them and like pray to them, like open your hands to them. Like I will take your gifts or do what you want.
Saluting is a similar thing, right?
Yeah, saluting similar.
This is my eyes. This is me like giving myself to you, like being vulnerable.
Yeah. All right, so Zeus's response. Zeus responds that yes, he will help. He didn't want to at first because he's like, I gotta be sneaky because my wife doesn't want me interacting in this war like that. Like, she definitely doesn't want me doing this, like helping you kind of thing. There's also some funny shit, like the gods were away because they were in Ethiopia having dinner. Like,
okay.
I was like, oh, all right.
Yep.
Okay.
As gods tend to do.
Yeah. There's also like some other stuff, like the gods wanted this war because they wanted to reduce the population. They felt that the world was overpopulated or something. There's some interesting stuff there.
Some Thanos shit.
Yeah. Okay, so that's book 1. Any questions on book 1 so far?
No, shit's going down though.
Shit's going down. All right, we're going into book 2. So, book 2, we're going to start with this part. I'm going to kind of go slowly through it, even though it's a little tedious. I'm not going to do too much of the actual reading, but I am going to just explain what's happening. The reason is, I want you to think about how these bards, Homer, would recite this, how they would remember all of these lines. There's thousands of lines in this story, so how does he remember it all? And one thing is repetition. So Zeus gives Agamemnon a dream to go kill some Trojans. And the quote that I'll use here is, "For he thought he would take Priam's city on that very day, the fool." So Zeus is giving him this dream, hey, you can go take Troy. Troy's leader is Priam.
He's like injecting a dream.
Yeah.
Dope.
And so it's the repetition is that Zeus says this, like in his court. He's like by himself. He's like, all right, I'm going to give him a dream that he can go kill Troy if he attacks tomorrow. And he says a bunch of other things. And then he goes and gets a god that injects dreams and tells that god the same thing that he just said. No shortening. And then that god goes and gives the dream, and they recite the dream, which is what he just said twice, for the third time. So it's repeated 3 times. The exact same way. And for modern readers, you're like, what the fuck is happening? Am I having a stroke?
Yeah.
You need to understand mythology. This is for a couple different reasons. One is so that these myths repeat themselves often in either the exact phrasing or the themes, so that they are likely to survive longer through the generations. The one that I always use with my students is Crater Lake. There's a myth about Crater Lake up in Oregon, Washington area, right? About throwing fire, like, and there's fire used a whole bunch of times, like in sacrifice by fire, and there's a fire god. And the reason for that is that Crater Lake is a volcano and it can explode. And so they're trying to make sure that 1,000 years from now that the descendants of this oral tradition will know, do not build your city by this big lake, although it looks nice, because it might explode again, because we've lived through the explosion and it was very bad. So that's like the main reason why you do this with the repetition, is so that the thing survives.
Sticks.
Yes. And the other reason is that it's easier to remember as the person speaking. Right, so I'm able to now remember 3 chunks of my story better because I have the same hook that I can draw from. So just some into how we theorize that it works. There's a good book on that if you're interested in more on that side, the like linguistic side of mythology, called "When They Severed Earth from Sky." It's very good. Okay, so it's implied that the Greeks think they haven't won yet because the gods are in an argument, which is kind of true. So we repeat a bunch of stuff. But now Agamemnon's going to he takes the dream. And he's going to kind of prove Achilles wrong now. I think he does this next part. He is going to go to battle because he had this dream, which he thinks is from a god, which it was. Which is a good reason in this time period to go to war the next day, because you had a vision it was going to happen. The difference of this one is he's going to go to battle too. And he hasn't gone to battle yet, right? That's what Achilles is criticizing him for, so he's going to try to correct it. Again,
time to nut up or shut up.
Alexander the Great, Caesar, they're all reading this being like, okay, yeah, got it. Do that first so that this doesn't happen later.
I have to be on the front lines. I need combat experience.
Yep.
Combat experience was a very admirable thing to have.
And you had to lead from, there's no communication's really hard, so you need to at least be there.
Mm-hmm.
So Agamemnon's going to battle, but this is a weird part, but this is the diplomacy side. This is the humans have always been complicated creatures, and we try to simplify stuff, but this part's complicated in that he wants to do a test with his soldiers. And so he doesn't say we're going to battle. He says, pack it up, we're going home.
Kind of see if they're going to be like, no.
Yeah.
And what's the
doing
result?
The test. Well, it takes 9 of his heralds to quiet down the soldiers because they're all freaking out. They're like, some are excited, some are mad. Anyway, the hall is going wild. Agamemnon says that his army is 10 times the Trojan army. And
is that true?
Well, we don't know the numbers, but that would track for me. So Dan Carlin talks about, when he talks about siege stuff, that you need at least 3 times the amount of troops
to carry out the siege.
To win a siege.
On the
historically, you need at least 3 times.
On the aggressor's side.
Yes.
Got it.
And I would say that would be if you have siegecraft. So if you don't really have siegecraft, if you're not Caesar making these tunnels and shit like that,
walls,
right? If that's not available yet because this is the Bronze Age and they don't have that going on yet that we know of, then you're going to need a lot more troops.
Makes sense.
And Troy seemed like it was a big ass place.
Yeah.
So they had the.
I through my years, I heard it compared to like Atlantis, a second Atlantis. Like it was supposed to be huge as fuck.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very big. Like a god built their walls. Like it's crazy, and it has like an inlet. It's pretty cool idea. So their cities, Thersites. I don't know if that's how you say his name or not. He starts to make a speech about leaving, and Odysseus, who's usually pretty calm. Odysseus is like a cool guy. He hits him with a scepter over the head. He hits him really fucking hard, which is pretty great. So Odysseus then gives a speech about holding fast. The thing is, Odysseus immediately, even if Agamemnon wouldn't have told him before, he knew that this was a ruse because nobody is smarter than Odysseus. He's the smartest man in this time period. And so he's like, you guys are all dumb. Like, then this guy's got to get shut up or else Agamemnon's going to fucking kill us all because he's mad at us. Then Nestor goes after and calls them all big babies. Nestor also describes that a leader needs to maintain unshaken purpose. He also goes into an interesting description of how to find cowards in the ranks. This part is where Nestor is kind of a cool, like, weird dude because he's like, you guys are all bitches, and I know how we can weed out these cowards if we do have cowards in these ranks. And his idea is like kind of complicated to me. I didn't really understand it. Basically, it was about having all the troops form up by clans and families, and then having them next to other ones that they have an oath with. So then they could then, as the guys on chariots, measure who is actually like fulfilling oaths or not. There's no reason for them not to protect the guy next to them. So then it's easier to tell if they're a coward or if there was just like a one dude issue.
That's interesting.
It is. Scary, like, group punishment ideas pop into my head, right?
For sure. Imagining, like, this my entire life being like, bro, you're my dude. And then when the moment comes, it's like, I have been lying to you for years so that I could have the illusion of safety.
Right.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Or, like, a group. Makes me think, like, a small, little island Greek village wanting to kind of run away. And then them all getting grouped together, like, now we can't.
Right.
If one of us does, we're all dead, essentially.
Right.
So that part's kind of a Nestor's no joke, but he wants to win this war. That's what he's here for. Okay, Agamemnon will then tell all the men to be ready for a hateful war. So they all get ready. They're sharpening their spears and shit. They sacrifice food to gods. A little bit on sacrificing. We'll go more into that later. But I believe there was a trick on Zeus at one point when sacrifices were first like invented for gods. And they got the gods to eat the worst part. So the gods eat like the steam. And we eat the food. And so it's like, okay, now I understand. When you sacrifice for gods, yes, there's a religious component. But it also is going to give me food. So I need to do it in important times so that I'm well fed with the best food I have available, especially if I'm going to an all-day war, like a battle. And we see that there's, yes, these fantasy elements, yes, these religious elements, but there's also the practical side of them. And I think that when we misunderstand ancient culture, it's that we separate them. They're the same thing. It's practical and religious at the same time. It gives them the food, the nutrients they need, and it gives them this religious zeal. Those are both correct things for them.
It's kind of like fasting and religion. Like fasting is objectively good for you.
Right, yeah, it's just good. Yeah. Intermittent fasting's now
it's a fad.
It's a fad that I love.
And now, like, people and religion was able to exploit that and be like, dude, you're going to be able to feel and see different, your senses are heightened when you fast. But at the end of the day, now through science, we're like, oh, it's actually just like good as fuck for you.
Yeah, this is not a bad way to live. Okay, so all the men after the feasting, the sacrifices and stuff, they line up according to their clans. The list is really long. This is the part of the book, and it sucks that it's book 2 because this is where people give up.
Got it. So they make it past book 1, they feel good, they read book 2, and they see this long list. And
it goes on and on. They're like, what is happening? Highlights, Agamemnon, he brings 100 ships of men. So that's probably 10,000 men, maybe more. I would say like plus or minus 20 for 100, like 100 men plus or minus 20 per ship.
Okay.
We don't know how many of them were soldiers, but we'll just do rough numbers. Next to him, so that his clan, so he has like 10,000 soldiers, just like his, right? Because they're lined up by clans, so they can check for cowards. And then next to him is the guys he has an oath with, which would be Menelaus, the Lacedaemonians, the Spartans that we'll see at Thermopylae later on. And they have about like 6,000 men or something like that. Achilles, he has 40 ships, so he has like 4,000 men. And they're called Myrmidons. Myrmidons.
Not cool. That's not cool.
They're ants that were turned into people or something.
Myrmidons.
So like Zeus like killed all the people on his island, and then he felt bad or something. So then he turned all the ants into people.
Okay. This is the least intimidating name I've ever heard in my life. Like if Marvel Universe, like ooh, it's the Myrmidon. Now that I'm saying it more, it sounds.
I like Myrmidons.
Yeah. Cool. Now that I'm.
Were you thinking mermaid?
No, it just sounds like something from fucking Fraggle Rock. Like it sounds weird. It sounds like something. Well, the spelling's
legit. It's MYR. I like an MYR start.
Myrmidons.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Achilles and his Myrmidons were not there. Achilles and his Myrmidons have made a name for themselves at this point, right? Like they are supposed to be there. They scared the Trojans.
Where'd they go?
Well, Achilles is pissed at Agamemnon.
That's right.
He's not going to fight.
It's okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it's good because I didn't read a quote, but I'll read a little bit of it about Achilles not fighting. So just so we're all clear, Achilles isn't fighting because he's mad at Agamemnon, but it's killing him not to fight.
Especially since didn't he just talk shit too about not being
about Agamemnon not going out and fighting? Agamemnon's going out to fight, and he said
he's not.
He let his dear heart waste away, withdrawn there, though he longed for the war cry and for combat. Like Achilles is loving this. If only every day could be killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The Trojans, they're going to marshal out their troops, so they're going to go meet the Greeks in the field. This is kind of confusing for me. I don't know why they would agree to do this, but they do.
What do you mean? Like kind of like a little bighorn situation where it's like let's go talk before we fight situation?
No, they're going to go fight them, like meet them. They're going to go marshal out their troops. I don't know why you would do that. I would just hang back.
I see what you're saying.
In my wall. But it's been 9 years. Maybe they're like, we are running lower on stuff and maybe we should put up a fight every once in a while. So they go and they do get a good spot, right? It's called Bramble Hill. And so they kind of get like this kind of elevated position, which is good if you're going to be in an infantry fight. The gods call this hill the grave mound of Myron the dancer. Who the fuck knows?
Sure.
Yep. What you need to know, it's a hill outside the gates of the city.
Okay.
So we're going to get our first why we know, like what we know about this hill. There was another conflict on this hill earlier, and I just want to keep it in because Homer's funny and his writing is good, and we should like appreciate that like he's not just, this isn't reading like old English texts that are really boring. Like this is fun, and it's Greek stuff is supposed to be fun. So there's this Trojan guy named Amphimachus. He went off to war decked out in gold like a girl, the young fool. That could not save him from a miserable end. Achilles killed him in a river and took his gold armor. So this is like a common thing about battles that we'll get way more into a little bit later. But when you kill another soldier in combat, you can strip off his armor.
Take their shit.
And you're supposed to. And it's kind of a whole other battle. You will have fights. There will be multiple fights in this story over people stealing each other's armor.
Yeah, I believe there's I don't remember what day it is. I think it's day 2 in Thermopylae, where at the end of the day, they literally just go and strip the dead bodies of all their gear. Gear adrift is a gift.
It is, and they use it, and some of it's nice, right? And that guy, he's all gold armor. The reason why he called him a fool is because everybody's going to want to kill you. You're covered in the best resource.
Putting a target on your back. Yeah. That's interesting.
So they all line up. The Trojans, they march, and they have like these loud war cries. The Greeks marched in silence.
Which could also be scary.
Yeah, I like that. There's dust coming up as they approach, because there's a lot of feet, right? A lot of horses. The approach suggests that they didn't clash from a run, like some of the other ancient battles that we've kind of talked about. So it suggests that they are going to have like this open middle ground. And we've talked about this in Thermopylae. We don't know exactly how ancient warfare worked, right? Was there a run to a push? We do know that there is some type of meeting, and that eventually one will get pushed back, usually. But we don't know what goes on. In this story, it sounds a lot like they kind of have an open spot in the middle for heroes to kind of come in and like prove their mettle. So this is where we're going to see some great stuff and weird stuff. So Paris, he's going to come out. Now Paris, let's describe him. This is from Homer. He's wearing a leopard skin on his shoulders with a curved bow and a sword, clutching a couple of javelins tipped with bronze, and challenged the best of the Greeks, any of them, to meet him face to face in fearsome combat. Paris? Kind of legit right here, right? And there's a lot of figurative language in this story where they're going to compare what's happening to animals, which I just love. So there's some animal language here that's fun. As a lion rejoices at finding when ravenous some hefty carcass, antlered stag, or a wild goat, and eat it he must, despite being set upon by swift hunting dogs and tough youngsters, so Menelaus delighted at seeing Paris. And then Paris sees Menelaus come out, freaks out, and then runs back into his line. It's not great.
Oh no, I'm scared.
So, not a fan of Paris. Paris' older brother, I think he's the eldest. There's like 9 princes of Troy. I think Hector's the oldest. He's definitely the best. And Hector turns to Paris and just starts calling him a little bitch. And I'll read some of his stuff because it's really fun. Because you just think of your older brother doing it to you. Wretched Paris, so handsome, so mad for women, seducer, I wish you had never been born or had died unmarried. Damn.
You suck, dude.
Yeah, it's just like,
You're a pretty boy. You suck. You know the girls. I wish you didn't live. I
wish you died. You imagine your older brother saying, I wish you died? Oh man, I would melt right then and there. So Paris is obviously like, all right, I'll fight him. And Hector gets stoked off of this. He's like, all right then.
Handle
Like,
business.
let's do this. So, and this is an interesting part of like battlefield tactics and stuff. All the Trojans sit down. In the middle of this, they're about to like kill each other. And they're like, no, we're going to commit to this. Yeah, we're going to watch this. And then Menelaus accepts. Hector walks out and talks to Menelaus. And they, all the other men, like they all like take off their armor and sit down. All the Greeks do. So
they're, like, giving respect to the moment.
Yeah, they're like, and I think it's probably hot. And
it's probably hot as shit.
And their armor's like heavy, and so they're
cool,
like,
a moment to chill for a second while we watch this dude lose.
But it's interesting that Homer is suggesting that there is enough commonality in these ancient battles to be like, everyone can agree that we can at least not kill each other for an hour. Like, let's take off our stuff and just chill out. Like, everybody can agree with that. Modern warfare, no one's giving anybody any of that kind of shit. It's so fast when it happens.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting comparison. All right, Helen is watching, and she calls herself a bitch, which is rough because I don't feel like she's really done anything.
She calls herself a bitch?
She does. She's like, I'm a bitch, kind of thing. As everybody prepares for the battle, she feels guilty.
Yeah, because this is all about to go down
because
of her.
So she sits with Priam, and Priam has her like talk about all the officers she can see from the Greek side, which is kind of a legit intelligence move. But it's really boring because it's just more shit.
It lays it out in full detail, huh?
Yep. Because she knows a lot of them apparently, and what they've done and who they're married. It's like nonstop. All right, so that's book 2. Book 3. We're getting ready for this duel. The troops are sitting down next to their captains. And the captains are in like chariots, I think. So it's kind of an interesting visual, right? You have these chariots, and then you have all these soldiers kind of with their armor next to them, sitting down, like probably playing in the sand because they're bored. And then the fight starts. And the fight's pretty legit. So Paris throws first. It's cool. Troy actually, I think, does a good job of like capturing how this battle felt. The movie Troy. So Paris throws first. It hits Menelaus' shield, but it doesn't go through his shield. Menelaus charge, and then he throws his spear. It goes through Paris' shield. It hits his flesh, and it almost kills him right then and there. So Menelaus is fucking strong. Like, he threw this spear hard enough to go through Paris' probably royalty, like, very nicely.
Something he inherited.
Yeah. And it went through it, and it stabbed him. Like, that's dope visual. And then he gets some, like, crazy shit. So Menelaus is swinging his sword, and he swings it on Paris, and it fucking shatters on him. Because it's like bronze, so it got brittle or something. And he just starts cursing the gods. He's like, why don't you want me to kill him? Like, please, just let me fucking kill him. Again, this is the muses and the geniuses and the gods. It's not your fault if shit goes awry. It's that...
It just wasn't whispering
that
day.
It's just not... They're not favoring you right now. And that's just how it works. They favor one side than the other. And who knows why gods do anything. So then Menelaus grabs Paris' helmet and just starts walking and dragging him around, like getting ready to kill him. By the helmet. It's like, so he has a chin strap, so he's just like getting led, just choking, and Menelaus is just ready to crush his fucking head.
Disrespecting him.
Dude, yeah, it's brutal. Aphrodite, who kind of has some like protection over Paris, she snaps the chin strap. So then Menelaus is real mad. Menelaus rose after all that happened, because they kind of like fall and tumble. So Menelaus gets up, he takes his spear, and he's like, I'm just going to fucking stab him. Like, I'm over this. And then Aphrodite creates like a mist, like that dust that we were talking about that's been kicked up. And so she makes it a little bit thicker so you can't see Paris. And then it gets weird. I don't know how else to describe the next part. Because all this whole part, I kind of like how the gods are like subtly in it. Right? They're like breaking straps and stuff. And it's like, all right, there's like favor involved.
Are they about to make quite the entrance here?
Well, she takes him to his own bed. And then she brings Helen in there. And Helen's like, I don't want to be here right now. And Aphrodite's like, no, go fuck him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like that?
And then Helen's like, you're a god, so like, I'll do what you say so you don't kill me. And then she does. And it's just weird because like there's a battle happening right now, and like nobody knows where he is, and so they just like they're having sex right there. It's weird. And on the battlefield, everybody, including the Trojans, are looking for Paris. Everybody's like, this was chill a second ago, and now it's not chill anymore. Where is he? And it's a big deal for the Trojans too, because they're kind of breaking a truce if they don't have him. It's like so there's shit going on. And then we go into book 4. This will be the last book we'll cover today. So we jump now back up to Mount Olympus, where Zeus lives.
The raper?
The rapist. So Zeus, he just starts like messing with the other gods. This is weird. Zeus is hella strong, and he's like, by the way, I'm stronger than all of you guys, and I'm hella smart. So he's just like messing with them. He's making fun of just like the blacksmith god. I forget his name. Hepatitis or something like that. Hepatitis C. But anyway, he was making fun of that guy because that god has like a limp. Because Zeus threw him off Mount Olympus at one point as like because he was mad at him or thought it was funny or something. So now they all laugh at him when he limps.
Sick.
Yeah, it's like really cool, guys.
This Mount Olympus place sounds like a real piece of shit place to hang out.
So Athene and Hera, they're mad because Aphrodite is helping the Trojans. Athene and Hera are on the Greek side. And so they're like, why is Aphrodite allowed to help, but we're not allowed to help? Which is fair. So more than that, Zeus is playing with just like, he's like, maybe I'll just end the war right now. Maybe I'll just let them kill everybody. Like maybe I'll just let the Greeks kill everybody. That'd be cool. The debate ends with Athene going down and making the Trojans break their oath and committing violence. So there's an oath right now, right, about this duel that they're not going to start shit with each other. Mm-hmm. And Athene, a muse, a god, they're going to make it happen.
We don't know why.
We don't know why. Okay. You don't know why gods do things.
Okay.
This conversation reveals that Zeus is the strongest, and it hints that he has a long vision for why Troy is going to fall. That's all we need to really know about Zeus right now. Is he has a reason, like he has a way that this is going to play out.
So he foresees this happening.
Yeah, he has a plan, and he's going to make that plan happen. But he's going to let some things happen either way. Like he didn't plan on Achilles' mom making this take a little bit longer, stuff like that.
Okay.
What's dope though about the gods here is that Athene shoots down as a meteor. Like it's like a meteor in the sky they see.
Yeah, that's dope.
Like whoa, and she like explodes and stuff. And then she impersonates like a Trojan officer essentially. And then she finds this man like a Laodocus. So he's in the Trojan line. He's like a captain. No, she pretends to be Laodocus. Sorry, she pretends to be Laodocus, who's an officer, and she finds this guy named Pandaros. Pandaros is a noble Trojan archer. He's not actually from Troy. It's like this other city. It doesn't matter. But he's like a captain. So she's like, it'd be pretty dope if you shot Menelaus right now. He's like, no, we're not supposed to shoot them. He's like, but it'd be pretty cool if you shot him right now. If you killed him right now, it'd be pretty cool. So Athene spoke and thus persuaded the wits of this witless man. So it didn't take a lot to convince this guy to do something dumb. We get a little bit about his bow. His bow was made from goats or rams that he hunted, like their horns, and then it was crafted. It's like a kind of cool little story. And the tactics of how he's going to fire his bow is pretty dope. So his men, he has them form a shield wall around him with like a spot for him to shoot his bow and arrow through, so that if the Greeks figure out what he's doing, they can't rush him before he can get a shot off.
Sick. So he's got cover.
He's got cover. And it's cool to see some of this tactic stuff kind of be revealed. Like, okay,
that is cool.
Cover your archers, that kind of shit. Like
in a so-called fictional story.
Fictional story, yeah. He prays to Apollo, the archer god, right? And Apollo is he likes the Trojans. So Apollo kind of helps him out a little bit. And he pulls the bowstring back. He pulls it back to his nipple. So just like we still do with archers, right? That's how far back you pull. And then he shoots his arrow. Athene, who just shot down, because she just wanted them to fire. But she doesn't want Menelaus to die because she likes the Greeks. So she goes and just swats away the arrow. And it's kind of cool how they talk about it. Just as a mother will swat away flies from her child. pretty. Yeah, she's just like, fuck that. And just a little bit about their armor and stuff, because I've been trying to get more information about, what did they actually wear, what it looked like. So she swats it away from killing Menelaus. It was going to kill him. And it hits where the golden buckles of the baldric were fastened and the corselet was folded double. So the baldric is like a belt for a sword, and it can also be worn over the shoulder, reaching down to the opposite hip. So that's where he kept his sword in. And so it hit that buckle and broke it. And then shit's going to hit the fan next time we talk.
Okay.
It's just going to be a big-ass slog.
I mean, shit is hitting the fan.
Yeah.
But it's going to get more so, huh?
Oh, yeah. There's so much fighting, and, like, listeners, if you've never gone through this story, you're going to have, like, boats on fire and giant dudes with giant man-tall shields jumping boat to boat, like, hitting people and putting out fires. It's dope. There's so much fun stuff.
It's pretty weird. I wonder why it's not as much. You were saying in the beginning of this episode that it's not really something that's mentioned in our culture. Do you have any theories as to why that is?
No. I mean, I think the main thing is that the Odyssey is more digestible by, like, non-military people.
Okay.
I think this book is harder to read. I said, starting book 2 with the genealogy stuff and whose boats came from where, it requires context.
Got you.
The Odyssey is also like a contained story. Right? The Odyssey is a quest, and you know that he's leaving the Trojan War and he's trying to get back home.
Is this all over the place? Is that what you're kind of trying to say?
Yeah, and it's the 9th year of a 10-year siege, and so you need to know what happens before that to understand this a little bit.
I'm assuming in the author's mind, 9 years of relationships and things going on also complicates things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. I was telling Kevin, and I'll say it again, I would encourage listeners to go on YouTube and type in the Iliad and see what other content creators, history content, because this, for me personally, the way Kevin is expressing this story is way more interesting than what the internet's got going on. So
makes me feel good. If you want more detail on, like, step by step what happens in these books, Let's Talk About Myths does a good job. Like, she goes over a lot of the points of them.
Let's talk about myths. Okay.
She's very talented. She knows her Greek mythology really, really well. But I also recommend, if you're having fun with this, you want to dive into it just for a little bit with us, just go on Spotify and listen to the first 4 books. Yeah. Because we just covered the first 4 books, so you could listen to the first 4 books and now know what'll happen.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah, I'll go do it. I'll go listen to the first 4.
We didn't actually finish book 4. We're about halfway through book 4. Come on, Kevin.
And so I'll tell you
come back and I'll say I have no fucking idea what this.
And it's okay if you skip through book 2 when you get to the parts.
Okay.
And book 3. Book 3 has a lot of that shit too.
Roger that. Well, listeners, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
This is a labor of love over like I said, Kevin's been working on these episodes for like half a year. It's been exciting to finally get to consume this.
Yes.
So I'm stoked about it, dude.
It's fun to get out of my brain.
I love it. I'm excited. I'm happy we're doing this. I'm liking where this is going, and thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Hit us up if you have anything you want to say in any way, shape, or form. We're nice. Ish. Yeah. Well, cool, dude. Well, fucking thank you for being here, and until next time,
okay.